Guadalcanal, a small name hidden amidst the vast blue of the Pacific. But in 1942, this piece of land, surrounded by crystal-clear waters, transformed into something completely different from what a map could show. It was a hell covered in green, a natural prison where heat, fear, and death mingled every day. The air seemed alive, thick, suffocating, with the constant smell of mud and blood. Mosquitoes attacked in clouds. Fever hovered like an invisible enemy. And every step through the jungle was a fight against one's own body. There, time lost its meaning. The days blurred together, the nights seemed endless. And the sound was what weighed most heavily. Because amid the buzzing of insects and distant gunfire, there was another noise. The deep, metallic roar that cut through the sky like thunder. The sound of the Corsairs. The men who piloted those machines were not invincible heroes. They were young. Many still carried uncertainty in their eyes. They had been sent to fight Japan, but discovered that the most cruel enemy lived on the island itself. Fever consumed them. Loneliness gnawed at them. The fear of not returning home accompanied them on every flight. And yet, they took to the skies every day, knowing that if they didn't, Guadalcanal would be swallowed up. In that corner of the world, survival was harder than victory. While hell broke loose in the Pacific, on the other side of the world, a machine was taking shape. The Vought F4U Corsair. A fighter designed not just to fly, but to dominate. With its inverted gull-shaped wings and a propeller so large that it required a rethink of the aircraft's entire design, the Corsair looked more like a predator than an airplane. Its silhouette commanded respect, its sound, fear, and its strength, reverence. The heart of the machine was the Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, an 18-cylinder monster capable of generating over 2,000 horsepower. When the pilot accelerated, the Corsair roared, and it wasn't a metaphor. It was a sound that pierced the body, a thunder of steel that made the earth vibrate. But the power came at a price. The Corsair was unstable, violent, difficult to control. The torque was so brutal that, on its first flights, many pilots lost control before even taking off. Some said the Corsair had a will of its own. And on Guadalcanal, that will could be deadly. Yet those who mastered it discovered something almost supernatural. The fuselage absorbed the wind as if it had a soul. The response to controls was immediate, and the feeling of power indescribable. In the right hands, the Corsair became an extension of the pilot. It was like dressing the sky. And little by little, the roar that had once frightened began to represent its opposite, hope. The Corsair became a symbol, the bird that appeared out of nowhere and disappeared over the horizon, carrying the fate of war on its wings. The natives of Guadalcanal called it the Blue Thunderbird. They said that when it passed, even the trees trembled, and perhaps they were right. The sound of the Corsair wasn't just mechanical noise, it was psychological. For those on the ground, just hearing it was enough to make their stomachs churn. The roar of the radial engine echoed for miles, mingling with the wind, reverberating through the treetops. It was the sound of death foretold. The Japanese soldiers learned quickly. When the Blue Thunder approached, there was nowhere to hide. No matter how dense the jungle, the Corsair dove with near impossible precision, and when it emerged again, it left behind smoke, silence, and the echo of fear. For the Americans, the same sound had another meaning. It was a reminder that the sky still belonged to them, that even exhausted, sick, and besieged, they could still fight. The Corsair was more than a machine. It was a promise that they were not alone. When the engine roared over Guadalcanal, the men in the trenches looked up, and, for an instant, despair gave way to courage. Sound became part of the war, part of the minds of those who fought. The pilots knew how to use it. They accelerated before the attack, making the enemy hear their approach. The noise became a weapon in itself. It disoriented, broke concentration, eroded confidence. It was the harbinger of chaos. Accounts from the time describe the same pattern. First, silence. Then a roar growing in the distance. Then the impact. And then emptiness. As if the jungle itself held its breath, guarding the echo of destruction. Nothing remained but the smell of burning oil and the distant sound of cicadas reclaiming control of the night. For months, Guadalcanal lived under that sound, a roar that brought both life and death, a symbol of power and madness, because for those who piloted it, each takeoff could be their last, and for those who heard it on the ground, each moment could be the end. The Corsair wasn't just a plane. It was the sound of war, the thunder of a sky that never knew peace, and the scream of men who fought on an island where even the air seemed cursed. On Guadalcanal, the Corsair's roar became a legend, and even today, when the wind blows over that silent jungle, they say they can hear in the distance the echo of that engine, as if the island still remembered the days when hell had wings.
August 19th, 1942. The world was still burning, and the Pacific was becoming the new theater of an unprecedented war. The United States and its allies were launching one of the most daring and decisive campaigns of the entire war, to seize Guadalcanal, a forgotten tropical island, but one of inestimable strategic value. There, in the middle of an immense blue expanse, stood an unfinished airstrip, and whoever controlled that stretch of land would control the air, and with it, the fate of the entire region. But what seemed like a straightforward mission soon revealed its true colors. The jungle was a living labyrinth. Every shadow hid an enemy, every sound could be an ambush. The ground trembled from the daily bombardments, and the sky became a hunting ground for anyone who dared to fly. On Guadalcanal, every takeoff was an open sentence. When a pilot pulled back on the stick, they knew they might never touch the ground again. The island didn't forgive mistakes. And death came from all directions, from the air, from the jungle, and even from the fever itself. The Japanese, determined to regain control, launched relentless attacks. Waves of Zero planes suddenly appeared from the horizon, swooping down on Henderson Field like predators on wounded prey. The fighting took place at such low altitudes that the roar of their engines mingled with the sound of trees being snapped by gunfire. For every victory, a price was exacted, and that price was always paid in blood. While the world saw images of white beaches and palm trees, the reality for the men on Guadalcanal was different, brutal, rotting, hellish. The tents were scraps of canvas soaked with rain and sweat. The ground was a constant mudslide that swallowed boots, equipment, and hope. Food was scarce in cans, often spoiled. Water, when available, was hot and murky. Sleep was a luxury, eating was a victory, and surviving until the next dawn was a gift few could celebrate. But the worst enemies didn't wield rifles. They came from within nature itself. Mosquitoes attacked in swarms, and with them came malaria, an invisible plague that spread faster than any army. Fever surged, bodies trembled, and within hours, a strong man could be reduced to a raving specter. Every night, screams of pain and delirium echoed through the tents. Men talked to themselves, calling out to their parents, their wives, or to God. Some believed Guadalcanal was cursed, a place where the jungle itself fed on human sanity. And in a sense, they were right. The island seemed alive. It breathed with them. It watched, and slowly it devoured them.
Those who braved the sky were mostly boys, men in their early 20s, from farms, small towns, and workshops where the smell of gasoline still evoked adventure, not death. They had been raised in a world where flying was a dream, but on Guadalcanal, flying was fear. Each mission began with a tightness in the chest and ended, if it ended at all, with a sigh of relief. The line between hero and forgotten was as thin as the horizon. There, no one wanted glory. They just wanted to return. Before each flight, the field fell into an almost sacred silence. Some pilots wrote letters, wondering if they might never have time to send them. Others simply stared at the sky, trying to guess if they would see the next sunrise. There were also those who joked, laughed, feigned courage because it was easier to laugh than to admit fear. But the moment the Corsair's engines began to roar, the silence broke. Sound replaced fear. Doubt became focus. And what was once a boy became a pilot. Each takeoff was a ritual. The tremor of the ground, the growing roar of the engine, the smell of burning fuel in the air. And then the push. The moment the Corsair left the ground, it was as if the whole world fell away. Up there was no shelter, but there was freedom. And for a few minutes, between fear and courage, they felt alive. The Corsair soon proved its worth. Over time, it became the predator of the Pacific skies. The pilots learned to use the environment as part of their strategy. They flew close to the sea, hiding in the glare of the sun, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They took advantage of the low clouds, appearing suddenly like metal ghosts. The attacks were swift, precise, and merciless. The enemy rarely had time to react. The Corsair dove from above, firing in short, deadly bursts. With each engagement, it proved its superiority over the agile but fragile Mitsubishi A6M0. The Corsair's engine resisted damage. Its armor kept it aloft even under fire, and its speed made any enemy maneuver seem futile. It was the new master of the sky, and soon the Corsair's roar became the most feared sound throughout the Japanese Empire. In the captured diaries of Japanese pilots, there were descriptions that said it all. When the bluebird appears, death follows. They respected it and feared it, because the Corsair didn't just win battles, it humiliated its adversary. And the fear it inspired was as powerful as its machine guns. The air war over Guadalcanal wasn't just a fight for territory. It was a psychological struggle where every sound, every shadow, and every engine echo meant something. The Corsair represented man's mastery over chaos, a symbol of power in a world where everything seemed to be falling apart. But for the men who piloted it, it was also a cruel reminder. No matter how much they dominated the sky, they could never control destiny. Because on Guadalcanal, heaven and hell were separated only by a thin layer of clouds. The most intense stories of war are rarely found in books. They survive in the memories of those who dared to cross the line between heaven and hell. On Guadalcanal, that line was tenuous. Every flight was a desperate gamble against the impossible. And every pilot knew that all it took was one mistake, one moment of distraction, for the ocean to become their tomb. Night missions were the height of madness. With no radar, no precise instruments, and near-zero visibility, F4U Corsair pilots plunged into the darkness, guided only by instinct and the distant glow of the stars. Amid tropical storms, the sky became a maze of lightning and biting wind. The Corsair rocked violently, and every clap of thunder seemed to herald the end. But they kept going, even when their fuel was running low, even when their compass betrayed them, because retreat, for them, was not an option. There are accounts of missions where the radio went completely silent, and the men flew side by side, trusting only in the shadows. Fear was a constant presence, but it was also what kept them alive. Courage in those skies wasn't about attacking, but about taking off, knowing there might never be a landing.
One such day, Lieutenant Robert Miller was leading a squadron of Corsairs over the Solomon Sea. The sun was rising, and fog covered the horizon. Suddenly, the radio signaled enemy contact. Dozens of Japanese Zeros appeared out of nowhere, descending in perfect formation. Miller was surrounded. No escape route, no reinforcements, no hope. It was then that he made an unthinkable decision. He climbed straight into the sun. The light dazzled the enemy, and the intense brightness became his weapon. From above, he dove like a hawk. The Corsairs screamed into the air. Within seconds, 3 Japanese aircraft went down in flames. But when the squadron tried to locate him again, Miller had disappeared into the clouds. He was never seen again. No wreckage, no landing signs, only silence. His name was lost in reports and numbers, but his act became legend among pilots. That day, the skies over Guadalcanal proved that bravery and madness in war are often the same thing. As the skies burned, the earth seemed alive, hungry, merciless. The jungles of Guadalcanal weren't a stage, they were an enemy. The dense vegetation swallowed downed planes, bodies, and memories. Within days, a crashed fighter plane was swallowed by the green and the silence. The wreckage slowly rusted, covered in moss and roots, as if nature itself wanted to hide the scars left by war. The soldiers said the island had a will of its own, that it devoured everything left behind. And in a way, they were right. To this day, beneath the damp soil and the bird song, the metal carcasses of Corsairs and the bones of men who never returned home sleep. They are forgotten tombs, silent witnesses to a battle that time tried to erase, but that still breathes in the wind and in the earth.
On Guadalcanal, the men discovered that winning didn't mean surviving. The Corsair pilots didn't just fight for territory. They fought for the idea that the impossible could be defied. And they won. That island, which began as a nightmare, became the turning point of the war in the Pacific. It was there that the Allies proved to the world that the Japanese Empire could be contained. It was there that courage found its purest form, even when all seemed lost. The F4U Corsair became a symbol, not only for its strength, but for what it represented: resilience, resilience, and sacrifice. With every roar of its engine, the sound said the same thing: we are still here. But victory came at an unthinkable price. Thousands of lives were lost, and among the survivors, few returned whole. Because Guadalcanal didn't end when the shooting stopped. It continued in the memories, in the nightmares, in the silences that came after. Men who survived hell but never knew peace again. For many of them, the war was over, but the island never left them. Guadalcanal was more than a battle. It was the limit of human endurance, a place where fear had wings, and where the sky and the jungle became a single killing field. There, unsung heroes were born, men who defied the impossible without expecting recognition. When the last Corsair took off, the sound of its engines did not fade. It continued to echo over the Pacific, mingling with the wind, the waves, and history. A reminder that on that doomed island, the sky also bled, and that the price of victory sometimes is to forever carry the weight of having achieved it.